Walk with me. And yes, it's a little windy today, but we're gonna do our best. So I've been getting up early Sunday mornings that I'm home and in town, and taking my son Greyson to the Venice Skate Park. And yes, I mean the Venice Skate Park, which is this really massive cement skateboarder's heaven right on the beach, like middle of the sand here in Venice, California. Venice, for those of you guys that don't know, was kind of a epicenter of skateboarding back in the day, and still is a destination that I think skaters come from all over the world to check out and skate these massive bowls, which are kind of like giant hollowed out swimming pools, so to speak, but all kinds of cool features. And you can go down there at any decent day and there's going to be all kinds of professionals and amazing skaters. It's kind of just in awe to watch, not to mention just a beautiful scenario to be in. And I've been taking my son and his little crew. So my son Greyson, 6 years old, for those of you guys that follow. He has a little buddy whose name is also Greyson and Greyson, whose father was really in the heart of the skating industry here in Venice back in the day. So he's kind of like permanently stoked. And we took the kids to a local skate shop a little while back, one of the original skate shops in the country. It's still around today, probably one of the oldest in the world, and got them all geared up. Greyson's got a little Santa Cruz board, his pads, his helmet, and we do our best to get up early Sunday mornings and head to Venice early because we want to get there before all of the older pros get there. You don't want to be the dad taking up the space with your 6-year-olds in the middle of a place that people come to skate and watch. But we get there early enough that we can kind of have at least a section of it to ourselves, and those that are there early kind of sunrise on Sunday morning are super respectful and love watching the next generation rise up. And we were there this last Sunday, and it was an interesting morning. You know, the other Greyson has been really practicing. His dad's been taking him really consistently. He's super into it. And he's starting to do just amazing. It's awesome to watch, like a little 6-year-old actually skateboarding. And my son Greyson, you could tell he was out there having some fun, and then started to get really frustrated, quiet, started to kind of sit down, shoulders slumped, head down, board in his hands. And obviously I do my best to cheer him up and tell him how great he's doing and nudge him without pushing him too hard. For those of you guys that have kids, you know what I mean. It seems like the more you want them to do something, the less they want to do something. But I could tell it was really bothering him that this other Greyson was excelling, and maybe not necessarily reference to him, but that my son, he was frustrated that he wasn't doing better. And that's kind of a pattern I've found in my son. He's ultra competitive. He's a super coordinated kid, so he's blessed that a lot of things physical kind of come easier to him. And this was something that he was struggling with. Now, don't misunderstand me. I think he's freaking phenomenal, and for a 6-year-old, it's amazing. But he was really hard on himself. Kind of shut down for most of our session on Sunday morning. And so we got back in the car and, you know, obviously wanted to take him out to some breakfast and just have a conversation, one of those father-son moments. A few different lessons that come to mind. I'm sure your brain is spinning with them right now. You're like, I know where you're going with this, Blake. This isn't about skateboarding. And I want to share with all of you that conversation, and really 3 lessons that I think apply to all of us, regardless our age and our wish or desire ever to skateboard. because I think it'll be valuable, and I think it's something we'll all be able to relate and resonate with. Before we get into some inspired life lessons from the Venice Skate Park, you know, I'm gonna ask, hey, who's by my side today? Check it out, beautiful day, windy, but hey, sun is there, ocean is clear. Let me know where you're chiming in from. Say hello below, don't be shy. If you're back to the crew, I see you, I see you. I love our walks together. Say hello, tell me something new. I wanna know what's going on in your life. If you're new, welcome. We walk together, usually live, usually around the same day, same time. Walk with me Wednesdays, sharing inspired thoughts. We've had some good ones. And you can catch some of the best on the podcast, Alive by Design, and all podcast platforms. Hey, who's subscribed out there? Who actually plugs into the podcast religiously? I want to know. Let me know below. I appreciate you. I love nothing more than hearing the feedback, reading the reviews, getting DMs of the stories of how sometimes our conversations hit you just at the right place at the right time. And that's kind of why we have these conversations. And the only thing I ask is if you get value from them, don't keep it to yourself. It's about sharing. It's about contributing. Tag someone below if they come to your mind or your heart. Share this feed. Leave a review. And most importantly, if you're new to us, hey, participate, please. Chime in below with some thoughts and feedback. And I want to talk about 3 thoughts from the Venice Skate Park. Before I even get into it, whether you're a parent or not, just in the brief story I shared, what lessons come to mind? What life principles come to mind? What key learnings come to mind? What advice would you have given my son if you were me in that moment that maybe is applicable to our own self-conversation? And the first thing that came to my mind is the fact that I told Greyson, I said, buddy, it's not about being perfect right away. You know, the more you practice, the better you get. And he's heard that enough from me at this point. The more you practice, the better you get. And I had that conversation. You got to be good. You got to be bad before you're good. You got to be good before you're great. And I tried to explain to him that's true of everything, and gave him some examples of things that he had started that he's great at today, that when he first began, he struggled. And he started to understand. But that's the truth, right? The truth is, in everything that we do, we don't start perfect. We can't expect to. Ooh, wind going today. And I know that's simple advice, and it's advice we've all heard. It's advice we've all given. But how many of us still today give ourselves grief when we try something new? We are so hard on ourselves when we do something and we're not perfect. We're not up to an expectation we think others have of us, even though, here's the secret, usually that expectation is only in our own heads. And we constantly beat ourselves up for not meeting the expectation we're creating in our own mind for ourselves. And guys, the reality is, in everything, you got to put in the time. You got to put in the reps. Consistency is how we become good. And consistency over time is how we become great at everything. And we can't expect when we try something new, right, to be instantly perfect. And more so than that expectation, we got to start beating ourselves up when we do put ourselves out there. And it doesn't come right effortlessly right from the beginning. Especially right now, things are changing. Things are shifting. Right? Everything is shifting. We are living in a new world, in a new environment, in a new time with new demands, constantly evolving. Nobody has it all. Nobody gets it all. And we're all just figuring out what the best next step is. So now more than ever, we're all stepping into that ball, right? We're all putting our feet on that board. We're all padded up right now, ready to drop in for the very first time in some aspect of our life. And we can't expect to be at the top of our game when we're just out of the gates. And more importantly, we can't beat ourselves up or let ourselves down or be overly hard on ourselves when we're not instantly perfection in whatever aspect of our life is. I know most of you guys probably said, I knew you were going to say that. But it's a good reminder for all of us. It was a great reminder for me to remind my son and also realize that applies way outside the Venice Skate Park. The second conversation that comes to mind is the fact that, man, we got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. And, you know, in this scenario, I can't say how much of it was the fact that my son's buddy was getting better. I think he's hard on himself regardless if that was there, but it's something that goes through your mind when all of a sudden you're with somebody who excels at something beyond what your current skill set is. We all have a tendency to use them as a benchmark to get in the comparison game. You know, there's a famous quote out there, comparison is the thief of happiness. And I think it's absolutely true. And there's so many conversations. We've had some in the past on this topic, but today more than ever, because we have this window into people's lives that is such a facade of perfection. The social media world where we see everybody's highlight reel and not the real thing. And all of a sudden we start to think that, man, everything around us must be perfect. And why am I messing up? Why am I so far behind? Why can't I have this? We start to go into this comparison mode, which leads us into this victim mentality, trying to compare ourselves against other individuals. And the reality in this scenario, the other Greyson's, he's skateboarding more. You can't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. In anything. And so often we're in our own chapter, the first couple of the book, and we're comparing ourselves to somebody else's chapter so much later in the book. And the reality when it comes to comparison is so often we focus on the things that other people are better than us at. We forget to realize that for everything there's others better than us at, there's also other things that you're better than others at. And you guys, that's the truth. We all have unique talents and gifts, but those unique talents and gifts are different from person to person. I couldn't imagine a professional rock band and having the guitar player getting all bent out of shape, mad at himself, angry, sad, depressed because he didn't play drums as well as the drummer. You're a guitar player. You can't expect to play drums as well as the drummer. He's a drummer. You're a guitar player. But so often in our life, we have our own art. We have our own thing we excel at, yet we get fixated on why we're not as good at other instruments, as other things, as other people, when you're a guitar player. And you guys, that's okay. It's a beautiful thing that we all have different talents and gifts. Man, the world would be a boring place if we all were good at the same things. We wouldn't get by very long. The diversity is powerful. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us need and benefit and want to be together. So guys, when it comes to comparison, don't compare your chapter 1 to other people's chapter 20, but don't compare, right, somebody else's art to yours. And you guys, that's the truth. When you start to get into the comparison game, you start to have little seeds of envy creeping in, of jealousy creeping in. You start to have competition go out of its gift zone or strength zone, where it can be a great thing that drives you and get into a hindrance, right? Get into something that paralyzes, get into something that gets in your way. It's an ego game. Celebrate other people's achievements and victories. Learn from them. And then there was a last lesson. Some of you guys are like, Blake, I thought you were going to say that one. But this last one might be a little different than maybe what you take from this scenario. And that's the fact that no matter the situation we're in, no matter the circumstance, no matter what we go through, no matter how much we're excelling in that moment or how much we're learning in that moment, we have to learn to celebrate the things that we have to celebrate in that moment. And you guys, this is something we've all heard in some way, but man, the world needs more of this right now. There's so much going on that you can fixate about. There is so many possibilities right now of negative circumstance. An infinite amount, if we start to glance into the future, of things that could go wrong, could not go our way, complete unknown or uncertainty. And all of that stuff, guys, don't misunderstand me. Hey, that stuff is there. It will always be there. It has always been there. And I don't think there's ever going to be a time where it's not always there in our future, that chance or possibility. But none of that negates the fact that in any situation, especially right now, there are things happening in the moment, in the present, in the now, that are worth celebrating. And so often, we're so focused on the future, what's next, that we forget to celebrate what's happening in the present, what's happening in the now. And I'm sitting there with Greyson, I'm like, man, this is beautiful. We're in Venice, California. 50 feet from the ocean. Sun was out, glistening on the water. People surfing on the sand with your friends. Like, this is something to celebrate. 6 years old, riding a skateboard in Venice Skate Park. I wasn't skateboarding at 6 years old, let alone on the beach in Venice Skate Park. So often we're focused on what comes next and what could go wrong. We forget to celebrate. We deprive ourselves of the very celebration that the present is bringing. You guys, there's a big issue with that. Number one, on a personal level, if you're constantly focused on what comes next, you're never going to celebrate the moment. You're never going to be happy because there's always going to be something you can figure out comes next. I call it the achiever's dilemma for all you fellow achievers out there. If you have the mentality of check the box, check the box, check the box, what's the next box? You're going to realize that there's an infinite amount of boxes. Problem is, most people don't realize until it's too late that, man, it wasn't about the next box. It was about celebrating, appreciating what's going on right now. But there's a bigger scenario here. If you look at a bigger picture, you zoom out a little bit, you go to the 30,000 foot, you start to understand the dynamic of which the world starts to work. I'll give you an analogy. If you have somebody in your life that you love to do something for, you love to make happy. All right, some of you, I'm sure, have these people in your life. If you have someone in your life that you do something for, and that could be a gesture, an action, it could be a gift, it could be something you do, you give, and you do it for them, and it gets no response. Not even no response, but a negative response. Not even no appreciation, but a lack of appreciation. And you do it again, and you get the same response, and you constantly give, and the person that you're giving to has zero gratitude or appreciation for what you're doing, almost the opposite. Pretty soon you start to give, and then instead of even acknowledging what you're giving, they look back at you and say, hey, what are you going to do next? If you had a relationship in that scenario, they went from lack of appreciation to almost an expectation of what's next without even acknowledgement of what's going on in the present, what would you do in that situation? Some of you guys are like, well, I definitely stopped giving to that person, let alone hanging out with them. Well, you guys, what if the universe acted just that way? What if you just looked at everything as if, hey, the universe was a person and it was giving you every moment in every situation? And what if the universe was looking back saying, hey, every time I give you something, are you appreciating it? Are you stopping? Are you acknowledging it? Are you enjoying it? Are you celebrating it? Or every time I do something for you, says the universe, are you sitting there saying, okay, great, and focusing on what can come next? Because if the universe keeps sending things your way, people, opportunities, scenarios, and you're not taking a moment to actually appreciate the present, and you're constantly focused on the next, well, the universe is going to feel the same way to you as you would feel in that scenario I just gave. Pretty soon, be like, yo, I'm going to stop sending this person that stuff. It ain't worth it. I know that's an interesting way of looking at it, but it might cause you to reflect a little bit differently on the present situation you're in right now, in every present moment. Start to realize, wow, there's a lot going on right now that I should be celebrating, shouldn't be taking it for granted. So my last thought from the Venice Skate Park is, you got to celebrate. You got to celebrate everything there is to celebrate in the present. Forget about what's happened and stop thinking about what can happen. Focus on what can you appreciate and celebrate. Not just appreciate, celebrate in the now. You can celebrate privately. It can be an internal conversation, a celebration, right? Privately. You can go do something for yourself privately, right? Go take care of yourself. Go treat yourself to something you love. Go celebrate something that happened. You can do it privately. You can do it with others, with yourself and with others. Whether it be a spouse or significant other or a close friend, or sharing it publicly, shouting it from the rooftop. You got to celebrate the things that are happening in your life. If you don't celebrate the things that are happening, what is the point? What is the point? What's the point of wanting more if once you get more, you're going to treat it the same way you treat what's going on right now? There is no point. So you got to acknowledge and you got to celebrate the present. The future is going to come whether you stress about it or not, so why stress? So those are some thoughts from this weekend from the Venice Skate Park. Hey, the more you work at it, the better you get. The more you practice, the better you get, right? The more consistency, the better you get. Comparison is the thief of happiness. Stop comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. Don't compare your art to somebody else's art. And celebrate, not just appreciate, celebrate what goes on in the moment. Celebrate. And I think what you'll find if you're celebrating what is put in front of you, you're going to find that just like you would do the same, the universe works in funny ways and starts to give you more things to celebrate. Quick view from the top. Beautiful day. Hey, which one of the 3 do you think you have to work on most? Let me know below. Right now, there's at least one, right? I know they're lessons you've probably heard in some way, shape, or form, but hopefully this brings it back to a level of consciousness, a level of awareness that you can apply to your life this week. What's one that you need to work on below? Maybe there's another lesson in that scenario that you would have given. Hey, comment with it. I'll read it. I'll share it with my son. I appreciate all the perspective. That's what this is about. You guys can catch past conversations on the podcast, Live by Design. Go leave reviews, subscribe if you haven't. And hey, if there's someone that came to your mind or your heart in this conversation, share it. That's the point of us walking together. Tag them in the comments. Go ahead and press share. And hey, here's to this week. It may not be skateboarding. It may not be Venice, but it's something somewhere, and I know you're going to face it. And I challenge you to keep those lessons in mind here this week as we all pursue better together. Have a great week, everybody. Until the next time we walk together, take care.